We had anarchists and Republicans and children and tattooed folks and the folks from the comic book store coming and congregating and saying, "Oh, you're in church. What's that mean?"
Welcome to the Fresh Expressions Podcast Season 5. I'm Heather Jalad, a pastor and cultivator of new faith communities that aim to reach new people in surprising places. This season focuses on community, how to build it, and how new kinds of churches can help combat the loneliness epidemic in North America. Along the way, I'll be joined by friends from the movement to co-host and add their insights as practitioners of Fresh Expressions of Church. We hope this episode deepens your understanding of loving our neighbors and leading faith communities in today's changing landscape. If you enjoy our podcast, please help us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or sharing an episode with friends or on social media. Now, let's dive in. Welcome back to the Fresh Expressions Podcast, where this season we have been talking about the loneliness epidemic and how the church can address that. And today we have our friend, my colleague, Luke Edwards with us. Hey, Luke.
Hey, Heather.
Hey. For those of our listeners who don't know who you are, like who is that? But can you remind them who you are?
Sure. I am the Associate Director of Church Development for the Western North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church, and it's way too long of a job title.
That's a long title.
But I help coordinate, cultivate Fresh Expressions with Western North Carolina United Methodist Churches, and wrote Becoming Church, a book that about starting Fresh Expressions, and so I get to work with folks across the country to who are wanting to start Fresh Expressions. And so that's me. I led a network of Fresh Expressions in Boone, and now I lead Who Let the Dads Out in Denver, North Carolina.
All the things. Lots of things. So you are in Western North Carolina, which most of our listeners know that suffered greatly as a result of Hurricane Helene. So what have you seen on the ground there in Western North Carolina since the hurricane?
Yeah. So, September 27th, we got this huge band of rain that came up from the hurricane, particularly in the mountain areas of our conference, so the kind of western third of our conference. So our conference is Western North Carolina, so it's kind of splits the state in half. And so our western third, not quite the western tip, but kind of the Blue Ridge Mountain chain just got nailed with a ton of rain. There was a lot of rain the day before, and so it was just catastrophic flooding that there's, as of today, which is like almost a month later.
I can't believe it's been a month. I know.
Yeah. As of today is like 90 something that have passed away and 90 something that are missing. Like 1,800 mudslides, like the scale of it's just bonkers, like 100 miles of devastation to anywhere that was near water, near rivers, just got really, really messed up and just a lot of destruction. So in response to that, it was just trying to rescue people, trying to save folks from the rising waters, folks that got caught in mudslides. It's just all kinds of craziness. And the first week or two, a lot of it was getting supplies up to these communities. A lot of the communities were just totally cut off. There's helicopters taking off from nearby airports, going to reach folks, get food, water to people, get people with medical concerns out.
I saw like mules taking medicine to people. I saw drones taking medicine, yes. Insulin to people. I mean, it was wild.
Yeah, it's the stuff out of movies. It's crazy.
What have you seen with the churches in your area and how they were responding and Fresh Expressions?
Oh man, the churches have been. Everyone has been so incredible how they've stood up and been there for their communities. The churches have really been kind of hubs of those communities. partially
Mm-hmm.
because relief supplies landed
Mm-hmm.
at them. Like the United Methodist Church, because we're all connected, kind of
Mm-hmm.
set up a supply chain. So, bigger churches down in the Charlotte area, Greensboro area, collecting huge donations, but smaller churches down the mountain collecting donations and just starting to move it up to the bigger churches along the interstate up there, which then would kind of push it out to smaller churches to distribute in some of the harder to reach places. And so, one, there was that. Two, like just really creative responses to human need.
Mm-hmm.
So our Fresh Expression leaders, Ashton's one of our Fresh Expression leaders who had just written me a micro grant for a Fresh Expression they call Holy Smokes, which is smoking meat as a way to build community and feed people's souls and bellies. And so I just sent a micro grant to them a couple of weeks before the flood, and after that, I was checking in on them, and Ashton said, "Man, I could use some more pork. There's a lot of hungry people around right now." And so we collected some meat, we collected some donations, and brought up 700 pounds of pork to Ashton.
700
It
pounds.
was a lot of pork.
And I saw a lot of like social media posts like asking for more too. And
Yeah,
yeah, I can't
yeah.
even imagine.
One of the cool stories was Charles DeRico down in Charlotte leads some Fresh Expressions with folks experiencing homelessness, and they put together backpacks. So the folks experiencing homelessness in Charlotte put together relief backpacks for folks experiencing homelessness up in the mountains. We brought those up to Waynesville,
Wow.
where those got distributed to another one of our pastors, Jed Tate, who works with folks experiencing homelessness up there. So just like really cool stories of folks showing up for one another. And pastors that are their jobs have very quickly become something really different, but really
Yeah, I
important.
bet.
And a lot of trauma and all that kind of stuff too.
Do you feel like the Fresh Expressions, the Fresh Expressions pioneers were like kind of like uniquely positioned to respond maybe or differently than
Yeah,
others? Or
I mean, I think so. I mean, I think our Fresh Expression leaders are natural community connectors. So they have
Mhm.
lots of community partners, and I think that's what. I mean, it's an important part of starting Fresh Expressions is being connected
Yeah.
to kind of not important people, but people in the community that you're transforming the community together, and so they're able to tap into that as disaster response as well. So those connections are
Yeah.
everything, and
Yeah.
so I think that came natural to them. I think with Dustin Mailman and GA at Underwood at Deep Time, they had these natural connections with some of the folks that other churches would not have been connected with. So they were also just aware of the places that were deeply on the margins in their community.
So set that up for us because we do have a conversation with them that's going to follow this. So kind of how did the whole story of Deep Time come about? How did that evolve? What did that journey look like?
Dustin Mailman, who's the founder and founding pastor of Deep Time, was an intern at King Street Church, the network of Fresh Expressions that I led, was already discerning a call to ministry, particularly to those with their backs against the wall. And at that point, he was really thinking about folks experiencing homelessness. So we had him focus on that at King Street Church. And then out of that, he's just an incredible leader for us and did some really important work for King Street Church. And then that was part of his foundation story. He also was connected to another church in Asheville, Haywood Street congregation, and a United Methodist congregation that serves folks experiencing homelessness and builds community with them. And so both of those were foundational. and so when he got appointed up in Asheville, Trinity United Methodist, just quickly looking to see how he could live out that aspect of his call while he served that church, and just found this connection with folks that were getting out of incarceration, folks that were marginalized and oppressed by these unjust systems, and also balance that with his love of coffee. He was a real coffee snob. He was just obnoxious. And so he just put those two things together, his love for folks on the margin, his love for coffee, and his love for the church. And I guess it's three things. And yeah, Deep Time was born.
Well, we'll get to hear more about that story and the folks that get to be a part of that in just a minute. Thanks so much, Luke. I'm so grateful for you and your work and all the amazing people that you get to do that work with in Western North Carolina. Well, welcome back to the Fresh Expressions podcast. This is a bonus special episode just because we have been noticing what is happening in response to really two hurricanes back to back here in the Southeast. We've been talking about the epidemic of loneliness this season on season 5 of the Fresh Expressions podcast. And really the significance of what the church can do in building relationships and fostering the sense of community wherever we are, and the work of Fresh Expressions in that regard, and how the church can really get outside of its walls and connect with this people in its community that might not otherwise walk in the doors of a church. And one of the ways that we do that is to engage with our wider community. And one thing that we have noticed is our Fresh Expressions are responding in times of disaster through those relationships that have been forged. And so I have some friends with me from the movement today that are in the North Carolina area. Many of you know that the Western North Carolina area in particular has been dramatically impacted by Hurricane Helene, and just continuing to recover from that disaster. And so I have some friends here today from the Asheville area, and I will let them introduce themselves to you and the work that they have been doing, their Fresh Expression, and really how they are responding to the disaster there. So you guys take it away, introduce yourselves, and then we'll kind of unpack where this all got started.
Yes, I am Timothy Underwood. My friends call me GA. The community know me as GA as well. Acronyms for good attitude, acronyms for graciously appreciated, acronyms for God approved, acronyms for also Georgia. I'm from Georgia. And my title is Minister of Social Enterprise. And I also do a little bit of supervision, a little bit of community health work, a little bit of peer support. So I'm all over the field when it comes to community.
I'm Dustin Mailman. I'm the founding pastor of Deep Time, which is a social enterprise, a ministry, a business, a community effort that celebrates, employs, and creates spiritual community with people impacted by incarceration. So the main way that we live into our mission is through a specialty coffee roasting social enterprise, and then a network of Fresh Expressions.
And so, thank you guys. How did that get started? Was it in response to some relationships that you guys had? Was it in response to a need that you saw in the community, an intersection of your own lives? How did that get started?
So I grew up in South Florida, didn't really grow up religious or going to church often, but I found myself going to a summer camp that my parents wanted me to go to from the ages of 8 to 18. It's called Camp Toccoa in Hendersonville, North Carolina. And it's from there that I encountered a Jesus that spoke through nature and spoke through service, and just was speaking in such a different way than the kind of dogmatic and not liberative way that I was experiencing Jesus so much as a kid. So through my time at Camp Toccoa, I started finding this Jesus that did care about solidarity with the poor and unconventional worship, and noticing those who were hanging out on the fringes of society. And as I read scripture more, and I start to learn about the Catholic worker movement and ecclesial-based communities in El Salvador, and spots like Homeboy Industries and Thistle Farms, and eventually getting internships at congregations like Haywood Street Congregation here in Asheville that does life with folks experiencing homelessness, and then King Street Church, to where we were having worship in bars and jails and homeless shelters and coffee shops. That I had this seed of an idea that worship is critical and is the kind of the blood of the church. I was also finding that though there were through these third spaces, there was opportunities for worship. There was almost no opportunity for folks who are participating in worship to have deeper engagements with spaces like third wave coffee shops. They were willing to raise money for us, but they weren't willing to consider, like, what could it look like for the people we're raising money for to roast the coffee and live a life well lived and not have to depend on these kind of one-off donation runs. So went to seminary at Candler. I did Candler School of Theology in Atlanta. I did everything I could to not follow the traditional trajectory through seminary. So when the seminary said, hey, you need to work at a church for a year, I said, I want to work at a homeless shelter for a year and find God under bridges. And when a global pandemic shut everything down, I said, yeah, I need to work at Grady Memorial Hospital as a chaplain. So it was through these experiences in third places that weren't the like fun and maybe I'll even say sexy third places. Yeah. But in these harsh realities where the real's happening, that the seeds of deep time started. Okay. I have a passion for coffee. I have a passion for the ways that coffee can bring people together and how it can be a universal point of connection. I moved to Asheville. I did a couple things in between starting Deep Time, but once I was appointed to Trinity United Methodist in West Asheville, I was hired to be a youth and children's minister, which I really liked, but I wasn't good at all. I have a much more missional orientation. I'm wanting to hear and offer care to the neighbors who are struggling in the neighborhood that we're in. I was knocking on doors and asking, how can the church be better? If this kind of opportunity was offered through the church, but maybe not in the church, would you participate? Those kinds of questions, doing the real deep listening that I think Luke Edwards really has become a master of talking about.
Yes.
And it's through there that I met a woman named Phoenix. So Phoenix, I had known her for years, but I didn't know her story. We ate meals together and would talk spirituality with each other. But when I was appointed to Trinity, I came to learn that she was the one who cleaned our church, and that the place that she called her home was our front lawn. And in one particularly harsh winter, Phoenix had overdosed and died. She was polishing our cross and vacuuming in between the rows of pews. And as I sat with her as she was dying, I began to know her family, and her family continued to reiterate that if she had work, like, this wouldn't have happened. Like, if her record didn't keep her from housing and workforce development opportunities and even churches, we don't think that this would have happened. So I had this seed of an idea, but Phoenix's death made it real that the church can have a very truthful, prophetic, empowering, gracious, and accountability riddled ministry that can literally save lives. and maybe save a soul or two in the mix too. But it's from there I began getting stakeholders in the community and learned this barrier to opportunities for employment and for housing in Asheville based off of folks' records. And I had stakeholders in the community around a table, and I just started dreaming. And at the end of one of those sessions, we called them think tanks, but it was just more of a community buy-in kind of conversation and deep listening. I concluded the meeting asking the question, who's missing from around the table? Yeah. And a reentry expert in the area, his name's Gene. He said, someone who's fresh out of prison. And then I said, well, great. Do you have anyone in mind? And then he said, hold on, and ran out to his car, and then in came GA.
Okay.
Yeah, GA, do you want to talk about what the process looked like?
Yeah, GA, tell us. Well, first of all, GA is like, what are you bringing me to? Wait, what?
The process was very fresh, very new. And I didn't know what to expect because I'm not from North Carolina. You know, my expectations were to go back home. From the beginning, I had qualms about what my last 6 months in incarceration would be like, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I even had thoughts of even just going back to my old way of living, my old habits, my old lifestyle, and do what I do best, you know, engage and interact with people, you know what I'm saying, for my own benefit, manipulate a little bit, you know what I'm saying, so I can get whatever I need, you know what I'm saying, in order to maintain and survive. But you know, through community engages as far as reentry programs and people who work in those fields, they stayed in contact with me and they reassured me that as long as I stay on the course, I'm going to have everything that I need in order to move forward. So that was like a 10-year relationship that I had with some of the people that's out here now doing wonderful work within the community and providing resources for people that's all returning citizens. But my first time being introduced to Dustin Mailman and also Dan Pizzo and Gene, when they introduced me into the meeting, they asked me what would coffee be like. I didn't have any idea because I wasn't a real big coffee drinker at the time.
What? Wait, what?
I couldn't tell you the difference between bad coffee and good coffee.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, I couldn't tell you any of those things. I was more like water and natural juices and stuff like that. Yeah, I was.
This is like a transformation that's happened here.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? They said it's levels to it.
Yeah. That's awesome.
But he asked me what coffee would be like amongst in the community. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have any idea. All I can do is share my experience based on what it's like in prison. And, you know, coffee is an item that build bridges, you know what I'm saying, to establish relationships so you can have that conversation, so you can be acquainted with the individual that you're dealing with when they asking for a cup of coffee or two, you know what I'm saying, and, you know, it established community, you know what I'm saying, within the prison. You know what I'm saying? It's also used as a source of money. If people don't have any type of finances on their cards, you know what I'm saying, they use stamps and they use coffee, you know what I'm saying, for trade-off items. You know what I'm saying? So like bartering and trading, you know what I'm saying, in a sense. So coffee worked big wonders, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to like prisons and even jails. I haven't stayed in jail too long, but as far as prison, it worked big wonders in prison. And it's also, you know what I'm saying, a good like energizer for when you're working out. I can drink me a good shot of coffee, you know what I'm saying, and I can go crazy for like 30 minutes to an hour. Burn out, drink me another shot, eat me some protein, and go another hour, you know what I'm saying? So coffee does this thing. Like coffee is one of the number one items besides food and water, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to prisons and stuff. And when he asked me would I like to join, I wasn't too sure because I was working for another company that also do second chance employment. And I do not want to leave, you know what I'm saying, the pay that they giving me and also the benefits that they are providing, but I also see myself doing work into the community as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I love being around people. I love engaging. I love mingling with folks. I love interacting with people. You know what I'm saying? Just being with all different type of walks of life. You know what I'm saying? And providing some type of joy, some type of inspiration, motivation, you know, even in a little bit of upliftment. You know what I'm saying? It's just something about being around community, you know what I'm saying, that just fulfills me. You know what I'm saying? Instead of being aloof or secluding myself, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm very sociable and stuff. So he continued to invite me into these meetings. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, man, why you pressing me, folks?
Because they saw something in you. That's why they saw something. Yeah.
So it's like we had a few things in common why I decided to join Deep Time. Number one, we have the same belief system. You know what I'm saying? That's God and Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. Two, you know what I'm saying? We love being around community. You know, and three, we love helping and supporting people.
Yes.
Or we both love hip hop.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, he's a big time hip hop head. He said it, you know. But the main thing was putting down the mission statement within Deep Time and really buying in what the mission is all about, you know, especially what Deep Time represents for us. You know what I'm saying? Devotion time, dedicated time, commitment time to God and community. So I was bought in, you know what I'm saying, beginning this year?
Well, I feel like you were bought in way earlier.
Yeah.
One thing that
But I was really all the way invested in because I started like part-time.
Yep.
You know.
So it was GA, and then it was a young man named Ben, who we unfortunately lost last summer before Deep Time got official, who worked with us. And but GA was bought in the whole time. We were roasting on a little home roaster at first, and it was just kind of like, work an event with me, and I'll give you some money.
Tell them about the first time when I asked you how much the coffee. Now I brought some friends over. You know, to show them what type of community work that he doing and stuff, you know, through the profession of roasting coffee, through his coffee, you know what I'm saying, Faith Bay Coffee Roasting Company. And I said, how much this bag of coffee costs? And what you told me?
$18.
I said, 18, good, great. Hey, I'm willing, you know, I'm finna flex a little bit, think I'm finna spend about $10 or $20 for 2 bags or whatever. 3 bags. I said, $18, good. You feel me? Like, that price threw a dagger in my heart because, like I said, I'm ignorant when it's come to quality.
Yeah. I can testify. I can testify to the quality of the coffee. I have partaken, so I can testify to the quality of the coffee.
And that price range is actually on the cheap end for nice coffee.
Yeah.
Like $16 to $18 is actually really cheap, fair compared to the $20 to $22 bags you're getting.
25 too.
Yeah.
So if you articulated the mission of Deep Time, like how like succinctly would you just articulate the mission of Deep Time then?
Celebrate, employ, and create spiritual communities, which means we celebrating the fact that, you know what I'm saying, we're not in prison anymore. You know what I'm saying? Physically, we're not in prison, but, you know what I mean, emotionally, you know what I'm saying, mentally, spiritually, we might be in prison, and we got an opportunity to be liberated. That's if we give you know what I'm saying, we take the chance and the support that people want to give to us. We can't come out of our own shell and embrace the new life that God want to give us, especially in Jesus Christ.
Yes.
You know, we are employed now. You know, we are provided with a living wage, take care of our necessities, and some of our wants as well. You know, and that spiritual community. You got to have a support system out here.
Yeah.
Because God has not made us to be able to fellowship and do anything when it comes to, you know what I'm saying, doing the work as far as serving and glorifying God alone. You got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. You know what I mean?
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? And even in community, you know, what the word tell us? Forsake ye not the assembly of ourselves together.
That's right.
That's a you know what I'm saying? That's a time to fellowship, you know what I'm saying? You know, within the congregation and having that rapport with one another. God, with the life that He has given us through Jesus Christ, you know what I'm saying, operating in the Holy Ghost, you know what I'm saying, so we can fulfill the life that He want to give us from the beginning when He made us in His image.
Amen. Amen. And so you really have been, GA, because of the connections and the relationships that you have within the community. I mean, since the hurricane, tell us what have things been like? Tell us what it's been like. Yeah, tell us what it's been like.
Being in West Asheville, it's a little bit of mountains and there's a little bit of valleys, you know what I'm saying? So it's a little bit of everything, you know what I'm saying? We have a mix of everything, like a pot of gumbo, you know what I mean? And, those first 4 days or those first week, it was really hard because nobody couldn't get their hands on any type of source of power, any clean water. I'm talking about it was really complicated. And, it was really devastating, and Travis, you know what I'm saying, and the travesty that occurred through the people that had lost their lives because we haven't took the storm seriously. Like the people when Noah was one of the people when that flood was about to come and he was building that big old boat and they thought he was crazy and they were making a mockery of him. You know what I'm saying? Many of us, and we made a mockery of the storm because we thought we were safe in the mountains. But once it hit, you know what I'm saying, reality hit us.
Yeah.
So those first 4 days or 5 days, it was really difficult. But once we got our hands on a little bit of water, it really started coming together and making things happen. You know what I'm saying? It let us realize that in the midst of all of this, in spite of what we think or how we feel, you know what I'm saying, God is in control. All things work together for good to them that love God. And in everything, we should give thanks. You know what I'm saying? Because God is with us. He said He'll never forsake us. He'll never leave us, but He is with us through us all. So His yoke is made easy and His burden is light. When we have our faith in Him, you know what I'm saying, that can bring us through, that we can be more than conquerors through Him that love us.
So, I mean, you guys, I can't even imagine. I mean, I couldn't even get hold of anybody. I actually have a daughter that goes to school in North Carolina. I mean, a lot of people, phones weren't working. Like, how are you even checking on your family, your friends, your community? Like, how are you going door to door? What are you doing?
It's been a while because, the service was down kind of.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? People couldn't get any source of power, so the phones was dead. People couldn't get any information, as far as internet, you know what I'm saying, connection. So it was very complicated in the first 4 days. But once people started getting some power through these generators that they have been providing, you know what I'm saying, to the people, they've been, you know what I'm saying, they donated and they gave people a lot of generators to be able to generate their phones or little lamps or whatever they need in order to get through. And people start connecting with each other and stuff and checking on each other and things like that. My family is not from here. You know what I'm saying? My family is from everywhere else. So, but I do have friends here that been impacted by this storm. So once folks, you know what I'm saying, got some source of connection through the phone lines and through the internet and through the internet, you know what I'm saying, everything was all right.
And what I'll add to that, the most immediately thing I did as soon as the storm had passed, I drove into town and I looked for people. So Deep Time has hired a total of around 20 people in the span of a year and a half. Almost all of which are returning citizens, a lot of folks who have complicated housing situations. So I was driving to the shelters and checking on some of our team, and the two women who stay in a shelter were actually helping run the shelter because there's no power or electricity, and they were RAs for the building. And I went and checked on one of our newest hires, and he was out leaf blowing and cutting down trees in the neighbors' yards. And I went and checked on GA and made sure he was good. The first thing I did, phones weren't working. But I knew where folks stayed, so I got to go and check on folks. A lot of folks forgot that I knew where they lived too. So they were like, "How do you know where I live?" But that touch point, as soon as we knew everyone on the team was safe, my immediate reflection was, how do we faithfully go towards the next step? Most churches didn't have worship that next Sunday,
right?
And to my surprise, I got to lead something that was more reminiscent of a fresh expression than it was a traditional Sunday morning worship.
Yeah.
And we had a circle of chairs and we lit a candle in the middle and we read Exodus 14 together. And I invited the community that sat around the circle. It was no one that traditionally worships at Trinity UMC, which is our anchor church. And it was some folks who were involved in the periphery of deep time, but it was people looking for recovery communities. It was folks who were on the streets who had nowhere safe to be through the storm. It was neighborhood children. It was folks who were on bikes who were wondering what was going on. And I asked the question, we have made it through the waters. Do we try to build back what once was, or do we work with God to see what's next? And it was from there. We knew everyone was safe. There was this dynamic circle of folks. And I saw clearly a need. One, we started a redistribution center. So though I turned to my denominational representatives that I was supposed to, it wasn't the denomination that showed up with resources to redistribute. It was the poor. It was the poor of West Asheville who came with resources for us to get out to folks who needed it most. And from there, we were getting food out and water out, and we had a pop-up tent. GA was with me. And what we were seeing clearly is that we had an abundance of water. And we had an abundance of coffee that does have a shelf life. So we set up a pay what you can tent in front of the abandoned Family Dollar next to our church. And church just kept happening in the streets of West Asheville in the aftermath of a hurricane. Became the third place that church was happening.
Nice.
I mean, literally, we've set up the tent. Our table was ready. It looked beautiful, at least to my standards. And there's a person who walked by and they said, coffee? No one has coffee right now.
I bet.
But what this person said was, I hope you know how much violence you're curtailing right now. We had anarchists and Republicans and children and tattooed folks and the folks from the comic book store coming and congregating and saying, we want to get out of the heat of the day. Oh, you're at church. What's that mean? We had, I'm a United Methodist, and I love that we locate ourselves in a holiness tradition. And we had folks asking about these dreams that they had and some prophetic visions they had that I don't know if I'll ever experience them again, but that was church for them in a safe enough place to share their testimony. So we began to see discipleship and community forming, and we've been out there almost every day since. Every day looks different, but there's something really, really powerful in the aftermath of this hurricane that the streets became the third place, not like the plant store that specializes in variegated monsteras or coffee shops or like, places where bourgeois people hang out. But it's like in the nitty gritty reality of life where we got to engage what liberation theologians call the real. We were having to receive people as they were. Folks who were on the streets and folks who donated $300 for a cup of coffee were spending time together, like fellowshipping together underneath this tent in the wake of destruction.
Yeah, that's word.
Absolute intersection of your community in every way, shape, and form. And I'm wondering, Dustin, you said you knew where people lived. I mean, that says a lot to the work that you've done in forming those relationships and being present in your community and being able to check on folks and noticing who's there and who's not there. I guess what's surprised you the most in this time, in these last couple of weeks? Is there any, or I should say, after all of this time and all the work that you've done, what could surprise you? But is there something that's really surprised you in these last couple of weeks?
How people came together and made things happen. Yeah.
I'm going to give him a shout out. A former employee of Deep Time was the biggest surprise. This fella, from a ministry standpoint, fit right where he needed to within the confines of Deep Time. But Deep Time is a business, and there's a level of accountability and responsibility that was there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was perfect for the community, but not for the enterprise piece, which has been really complicated to wrestle through with a social enterprise. Like it is so hard. I don't know that it'll ever be easy. When you hear people like Greg Boyle being like, yeah, come back when you're ready. It's like, that's what we said to him, and it's true, but it hurt. But this guy, tattoos on his hand, doesn't take anything seriously. He was texting me at 11 o'clock at night, the night of the storm. He said, "Are you okay?" And then he started saying, "Dustin, I understand why you wanted me to do this community work. I love this. I'm getting resources out to people." And then he's like, how is your son? And then just 2 days ago, he said, "Hey, are you here?" And he came out and he hugged me. He's like, "Those certificates you had me get through the program are that I'm actually using them with these new jobs I'm applying for. Like, can we get lunch together? Can we find ways to keep reading together?" Having to invite him to step away until he was ready was one of the hardest things I've done with Deep Time so far. But I'm realizing that, and I said this a lot, that it was a sink or swim moment to where we learn how powerful the community actually is. And he calls us kin. Like, he's still calling us. He's still texting us. He's still wanting to engage in church and figure out what worship looks like for him. He's a mystic to his core. He's one of my favorite people on earth. And he also knows that, we only offer accountability because we love him from a place that's inspired by who Christ calls us to be. And as someone who's grace first, that's really hard for me to say oh yeah, that was the best thing. But this happened in the midst of devastation when I expected him to do anything other than turn towards community because that's the last thing he wanted to do while he worked with us.
That's wild. Yeah. It sounds like he was texting you to check on you, but at the same time he was telling you, you know what? I actually really need you. I actually am realizing in this moment, I really need you. We really need each other. That's powerful. That's really, really powerful.
Well, and it was in that moment that I learned it wasn't just a working relationship, but a real gospel centric. I mean, I would call it gospel centric, sense of kinship.
We all need each other. Yeah. It was a moment of revelation. Yeah. That's good. That's beautiful. You guys, I just want to thank you for the work that you are doing and obviously making a significant difference in your community. And I think undergirding, underlining, highlighting the work of cultivating community that is, in the words of one of my colleagues, thick community, those deep relationships, and the significant things, the powerful things, the transformative things that can happen there, and how in the midst of a time like disaster, that can absolutely bring you to the end of yourself. God can do amazing, amazing things. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Fresh Expressions is a worldwide movement of everyday missionaries who want to see churches thrive in the places we live, eat, work, and play by leveraging the creativity and endurance of the inherited church. To learn a simple 5-phase process for starting a new expression of church, go to freshexpressions.com/how-to-start. Want to learn more from the Fresh Expressions team? Head over to freshexpressions.com/training to learn ways we can work together to provide coaching, training, and inspiration for your church or organization. You can also get more resources like this on FX Connect, an online community full of other church leaders passionate about reaching new people in new places. Access our entire library of practical and inspiring training materials and connect with other church leaders at fxconnectus.org. Season 5 of the Fresh Expressions podcast is hosted by me, Heather Jalad. It's edited by Joel Limbaum and produced by Jeanette Statz, Kathleen Blackie, and Chris Morton. Our U.S. Director of Ministries is Shannon Kaiser, and our Senior Director is Dr. Christopher Backert. If you have learned something or been encouraged by this podcast, please help us spread the word. You can give us a review on Apple Music or Spotify and share this episode on social media. Now may God bless you in your work for the kingdom.